The rain fell like cold needles from the dark sky. The streets were empty, the buildings broken. The lights flickered weakly. The city had once been full of life, but now it was only smoke and silence. Two small alien girls sat close together in a corner between two old crates. They had no coats, no shoes, and no food. Their skin was pale blue, and their eyes glowed faintly in the dark. They were sisters. The older one was maybe 10. The younger only 6. People passed by, but no one looked. Some saw them and turned their heads away. A soldier even stepped over them like they were trash. The older girl pulled her sister closer and whispered, "Stay still." The little one was shaking, her lips blue from the cold. Her thin arms wrapped around her sister's waist like she was holding on for life. They had no name anymore, no family, no home a few days ago. Their home was bombed. Their parents told them to run, but never caught up. The girls waited, but their parents never returned. Now they were alone in a city that didn't care. The older girl tried to look strong, but her eyes were tired. She hadn't eaten in 2 days. She hadn't slept in 3, but she still whispered stories to her sister. Stories about stars, flowers, and warm food. Stories that kept them alive one more hour. One more night, then came footsteps, slow, heavy, not like the others. A tall human man walked down the street. He wore a long brown coat soaked from the rain. He had a short beard, tired eyes, and a bag over his shoulder. He was just passing by like everyone else, but then he heard something. A soft cough, barely louder than the rain. He stopped, turned his head, and listened again. A soft cough, then a quiet sniffle. He stepped off the path and moved toward the crates. He knelt down slowly, careful not to scare them. He looked inside the dark space between the crates, and there they were, 2 small glowing eyes looking up at him, one pair full of fear, the other full of sadness. His heart twisted in his chest. The girls stared back, frozen. They had seen humans before, cruel ones, angry ones. They didn't trust him, but he didn't speak, not at first. He just took off his coat slowly and wrapped it around both of them. The coat was warm, dry inside. It smelled like old wood and fire. The girls didn't move, not even when he placed it gently around them. He sat there for a moment, quiet, then he said, "You're cold." His voice was soft, like a whisper in the rain. He looked into their eyes and asked, "Are you hurt?" The older girl shook her head slowly. The younger one held her tighter, still silent. "I won't leave you here," he said. "Not in this storm, not like this." He opened his arms, waiting. The girls didn't move at first, but then slowly the older one helped her sister climb into his arms. Then she followed. He stood up with both girls in his arms. Light as feathers, he walked through the rain with heavy steps. The girls were silent but awake. For the first time in days, they felt warm. People watched him carry them. Some whispered, some frowned. One woman said, "Why take them?" "They're not even your kind," he didn't answer. Just held the girls tighter. He looked down at the younger one. She had fallen asleep against his chest. Her tiny hand clutched his shirt. He looked at the older one. Still awake, still watching him. She asked in a small voice, "Why are you helping us?" He took a deep breath and said, "Because someone helped me once. And I didn't forget." They walked past broken homes, past angry eyes, past locked doors. He didn't stop, didn't turn around. The rain kept falling, but he didn't care. He looked forward and said, "You don't belong in the shadows anymore. Both of you, come home." The city looked different in the morning, but not better. It was still cold, still broken, still full of eyes that did not care. Only the rain had stopped, but the silence stayed. The human man walked slowly, carrying both alien girls wrapped in his coat. One girl was asleep, her face hidden in his chest. The other held on tight to his shoulder, eyes open, watching everything. Her name was Aru, but no one had said it in days. She did not trust the man yet, but she did not fear him, not like she feared the others. The man's name was Callan. He didn't speak much as he walked. He had walked these streets before when they were full of war, when humans were not welcome. And when aliens fought back with fire, now the war was over. But hate stayed behind like smoke on old clothes. Everywhere he went, doors stayed shut. He knocked on a clinic door. A voice from inside shouted, "We don't help your kind." He knocked on a church gate, they said. "Only locals allowed." He even tried a market shelter, but the guards stepped forward with sticks and sneers. Aru whispered, "Why do they hate you?" He looked at her and said, "Because I look like the ones who started the war." "But you're helping us," she said. Confused, Callan nodded. Sometimes people don't see hearts, only faces. He turned down a side road where the noise of the city faded. It led to the edge of the district, where the buildings were older and forgotten. There was one place left and it had been locked for years. They stopped in front of a large rusted ship parked behind broken walls. It looked like a sleeping dragon, wounded but not dead. Its metal skin was scratched, its lights were dark. Callan took out an old keycard and pressed it to the scanner. Nothing happened. He tried again. Then the door made a soft click and opened with a sigh. Inside, it was dusty. Full of cobwebs and quiet, Callan stepped in, his boots echoing on the steel floor. The girls looked around with wide eyes. They had never seen a ship this close to them. It looked like a magic house with metal bones. He placed them gently on a padded bench, then walked to the control panel and wiped off the dust. He pressed a few buttons and said, "Come on, old friend, wake up." For a moment, nothing, then a light blinked. A soft voice spoke from the speakers. "System check." Captain Callan detected. "Welcome back." The ship had an old AI named Iris, it said. "New passengers detected. Identification not found. Are they crew?" Callan looked at the girls and smiled. "Their family?" The ship hummed to life slowly, lights flickering on one by one. The girls watched with wonder. Even the younger one, Leary, opened her eyes. She saw the lights above and whispered, "Stars." Callan laughed for the first time in years. He sat down beside them and said, "This ship took me to many worlds. Now it will take you to safety." But peace did not last long. Behind the walls in the city, someone was watching. The girls had escaped from a slave camp hidden underground. Their owners had placed trackers under their skin. One of the trackers had just sent out a signal. Inside the ship, the screen blinked red. "Warning, signal detected. Unauthorized tracking pulse nearby." Callan's face went cold. He checked the scanner and cursed under his breath. "They're coming," he said. "Who?" Aru asked. "The ones who think they own you," he said, standing up fast. He opened a drawer and pulled out a small metal tool. He looked at Aru and said, "This will hurt for just a second, okay?" She didn't move, didn't cry, just nodded. He scanned her arm and found the tracker with careful hands. He removed it and crushed it under his boot. Then he did the same for Leary, who whimpered but stayed brave. The ship's lights dimmed again. Then Iris spoke. Multiple heat signatures approaching. Armed, Callan didn't wait. He ran to the engine room and started repairs. He shouted to Aru, "Press the green button if I say go." Aru nodded and ran to the console. Leary crawled next to her and held her hand. Outside the wall, footsteps came closer. Voices shouted in a strange language. Angry and sharp, one voice said loudly, "Return the girls or die with them." Inside the ship, Callan wiped sweat from his face. He looked at the blinking lights and said, "You better fly today, you rusty old bird." The engine made a loud cough. Then a strong roar. Aru shouted, "It's working!" Callan ran to the front, sat in the pilot's seat. He looked at the girls and said, "Hold on." The screen showed the enemy breaking down the outer gate. They had guns, they had fire. But Callan had something stronger. He had a reason to fight. He pulled the lever. The ship shook, then lifted into the air. Hook for part 3. As the ship escaped the ground, a bullet cracked the window, and Leary screamed. Callan turned around, face pale, and said, "They're not giving up, so neither will I." The stars outside the window blinked slowly like sleepy eyes. The ship floated in space, away from the angry city, away from danger, but inside the ship, everything felt quiet and broken. The engine buzzed weakly. Like an old man catching his breath, the lights flickered, and the metal walls creaked now and then. This ship had not flown in years, and now it was carrying 3 lives again. It was not ready, but it was trying. Callan stood in the control room, hands on the panel, his face tired. He looked at the blinking lights and whispered, "You're still with me, old friend." The ship's AI, Iris answered softly. "Systems 40% active. Core power unstable." He smiled sadly. "We'll make it work, won't we?" Behind him, Aru sat on the floor, holding her little sister Leary. Leary had stopped crying, but her eyes stayed wide. She looked around the ship like it was made of magic. To her, this broken ship was a castle in the sky. Aru watched Callan closely. She didn't know if he was a soldier, a hero, or just a stranger with a warm coat, but he had saved them, and now she was trying to believe that maybe, just maybe, they were safe. Callan walked to them and knelt down. "I need your help," he said. This ship needs small hands and strong hearts, Aru blinked, surprised. Me? He nodded. You? He showed her how to twist a wire, how to clean dust from sensors. She followed every step with care, her fingers shaking at first. But slowly she smiled, just a little. It was the first smile she had given in weeks. Leary watched her sister work, then looked around. She picked up a marker she found under a seat and walked to the wall. There she began to draw simple pictures. Stars, suns, two girls holding hands. Her hands were small, but her drawings were full of light. The AI's voice echoed softly. Unknown child is drawing on internal walls. Callan laughed. Let her, Iris. The ship had been quiet for so long. Now it had voices, laughter, little footsteps. It was alive again. Callan opened a cabinet and pulled out old blankets. He made a small bed near the engine room. Here, he said. Not perfect, but it's warm. The girls sat down on the bed. Tired, Aru looked up at him and asked, Did you live here before? He nodded slowly. With my wife. And our son? He didn't say more. But his eyes became glassy. Aru didn't ask further. She understood the silence of someone who had lost everything. Then a sharp beep broke the peace. A warning flashed red on the screen. Tracking signal detected again. Long-range scan incoming. Callan's heart jumped. How? He muttered. I removed the trackers, Iris replied. They may have marked your ship long ago. He stood quickly and went to the command panel. He turned off all signals and darkened the lights. We need to hide, he whispered. They're still following us. Aru grabbed Leary's hand and held it tight. The ship floated silently in the dark like a ghost. Callan looked at the radar. Blips were moving closer, maybe 2 ships, maybe more. He walked to a dusty locker and opened it. Inside was an old helmet, a cracked picture, and a silver box. He took out the box and opened it carefully. Inside was a small cube glowing blue. He plugged it into the console. The screen came to life with new maps. Old routes, secret jumps, this, he said, is how we stay one step ahead. Aru looked at the glowing cube. What is it? It's the last gift from someone I loved, he said. It's our map to freedom. He tapped a code, and the ship turned slowly toward an old hidden path in space. It was narrow, rocky, not often used, but it was safe. If the ship could survive the ride. The engines groaned, the floor shook. Leary screamed and grabbed Aru's leg. Callan shouted, Hold on, girls. We're going through. The ship entered the hidden path. Stars vanished. Darkness wrapped around them. Rocks floated close. Some hit the ship with dull bangs. The lights flickered, Iris warned. Shields 15%, hull damage minor. But the ship kept flying, pushed by hope and old memories. Callan's hand stayed steady, his face full of focus. Aru watched him and thought, he's not just saving us, he's saving himself too. When they finally came out of the rocky path, space opened wide again. The radar was clear. No enemies, no signals, just quiet. The ship slowed, then floated gently like a sigh. Callan turned to the girls. He smiled, tired but real. You both did well, he said. You're part of this crew now. Aru smiled back. And even Leary clapped her hands, Iris said softly. Ship logs updated. New crew added. Welcome home, hook for part 4. But deep in the system, an old message woke up. A signal sent long ago. A bounty warning lit up on enemy screens, showing 2 alien children and the man who took them. And someone whispered in the dark, Found you. The ship glided through quiet space like a tired bird finding a branch to rest on. Inside, the air was warm for the first time in days, and the girls felt safe enough to breathe. Callan walked the narrow corridors with careful steps, listening to the soft hum of the engines. He fixed small things by hand, tightened screws, whispered to the ship as if it were a living friend. Aru sat by a window and watched stars move slowly. She tried to keep her eyes open, but sleep pulled at her heavy lids. Leary curled up on a blanket and hummed a small tune, something she had learned at the camp. It sounded like a tiny promise that the world could be kinder than it was. Then the ship shuddered like a giant waking from a bad dream. Alarms blinked red and Iris spoke sharp and clear. Warning! Contact detected, multiple hostiles approaching. Callan's jaw tightened. He moved fast now, a shadow of the calm man he had been minutes before. Show me the screens, he said, voice hard, hand steady on the console. On the main view, dark shapes cut the stars. Metal ships cruising with cold intent. They closed in like wolves, silent and sure, beams of light scarring the darkness. Callan swore quietly. They move faster than I thought. Someone tipped them off. Aru grabbed his sleeve, eyes wide. Who are they? She asked, voice small, trembling. Hunters, Callan said. They buy children, sell people. They think of others as things. He checked the shields. Then the fuel, then the weapons, old parts. But still they could fight, Iris said. Hostile craft are closing distance. Weapons active, hull breach possible. Callan turned, looking at the girls like a man who must choose brave or broken. Listen, he said, you must hide and be very quiet. Do not make a sound no matter what you hear. Aru nodded without words, her hands white on the blanket. Callan moved to a hidden panel and slid open a small hatch under the floor. It led to a cramped crawl space that smelled of oil and old paper, a place made for hiding tools and secrets. He helped Aru and Leary climb inside, their tiny bodies fitting like lost toys into a box. He covered the hatch with a metal grate and whispered, Stay low, stay quiet, remember the marker on the wall? I will come back. Aru pressed her forehead to the cold metal and closed her eyes, breathing slow to hide her fear. Leary held her sister's hand and hummed that same small tune, louder now to keep courage where fear might grow outside. The ship rocked as something slammed into the hull, a hard, ugly sound that made the metal scream. The hunters were not gentle. Footsteps and voices echoed through the corridors. Heavy boots and angry words. The leader's voice was rough like broken glass. Search every corner, do not miss a child, he barked. His accent foreign and mean, Callan stayed in the cockpit, fingers moving fast across the panels, eyes watching every readout. He whispered to Iris, Can we trick them? Can we hide in the noise? Iris answered. Possible, but risky. Deploy decoy signature, then power down main emitters. Callan's hand hovered. Sweat cold on his temple, then he acted, flipping switches, sending false heat and life signs to the other side of the ship. The hunters followed the false trail, breaking doors and smashing walls in the wrong rooms. Their boots thundered in empty halls. Their curses filled the air. One hunter pulled at a crate and cursed when it was only old parts. Another stood near the engine room and called into his radio. No sign they should be here, keep looking. Time moved slow as a stream, and louder as a storm in the crawl space. Aru pressed her ear to the floor and listened to the hunters breathe. Her mind went to her parents, to the day the sky burned, to the small warm hands she once held. She thought of the man who carried them, of his tired eyes and kind hands, and she felt a new heat rise in her chest. It was not the cold of fear, but a strange, fierce hope that said, We are not finished yet. A heavy boot hit a panel above them, making dust rain down into the cramped space. Leary stopped humming and held on tighter, small fingers digging into Aru's palm. Aru squeezed back, a silent promise to be brave. No matter what above, Callan greased the hinges of fate with every skill he had. He used the decoy, then powered the engines at a slow, steady whisper, enough to move but not to scream. He said softly, We will leave on my mark. When I say go, climb out and run to the escape pod. Do you understand? They both nodded through the metal, their faces pale but firm. Like little warriors in the main corridor, a hunter found a smashed toy and laughed like a monster. He tossed it aside and kicked at a locker. Then his light fell on a blood smear near the door. A sign of a struggle, he shouted. They were here. They left recently, split up, checked the aft and vent lines. Callan's mouth was dry. His hand steady, then sharp, fast movement. Now, he whispered into the comm. The hatch flew open, the girls tumbled out. Blinking, breathless, Callan grabbed them and sprinted. Feet pounding metal, alarms screaming around them. The hunters saw them and the corridor exploded with noise. A rain of bullets and curses. Callan threw the girls into the small escape pod and slammed the hatch. His hand white on the release, the pod jolted, the lock clicked, and then the pod shot like a frightened bird away from the ship. Aru watched Callan through the small window as the hunters crowded the doorway. Faces like storm clouds. He raised his hand in a small, strange wave, not surrender but a promise. The pod drifted into black space, metal burning faintly, and Leary clung to Aru and whispered, We are flying. We are safe. Hook for part 5. But as the pod moved away, the ship behind them erupted in fire, and Aru realized Callan had not left with them. She squeezed Leary's hand and said, We must find him. And the stars seemed to answer, holding danger and hope in the same bright light. The escape pod floated through the dark like a whisper lost in space. Inside, the air was tight and warm. The light soft and red, Aru held Leary close. Her arms wrapped around her little sister like a shield, but her eyes were on the small window, staring at the fire behind them. The old ship, their hiding place, their home for a day, was burning. Explosions bloomed along its side like angry flowers, and Callan was still inside. Her chest felt heavy, like a hand was squeezing her heart. "He said he'd come with us," Leary whispered, voice thin. Aru didn't answer. Her lips pressed tight. She watched, hoping, no, begging for some sign, a small pod flying out. A flash of light, a miracle, but the only thing that moved was fire. And silence. The escape pod's AI spoke softly. "Course locked. Destination: Neutral Moon 37. Travel time, 2 hours. Aru shook her head. "No, cancel the course. We have to go back." "I cannot comply," the AI replied. "Safety protocol, primary pilot missing. Rerouting disabled." Aru wanted to scream, but she couldn't scare Leary. She bit her lip until it hurt and whispered, "He saved us again." Leary looked down, hugging her knees. "I drew him wings," she said. "I wish they were real." Outside the window, stars drifted by, cold and uncaring. The pod floated faster now, pulled by the engine's slow burn. Each minute they moved farther from the man who had risked everything, and maybe lost everything. Aru leaned back and stared at the tiny ceiling. She remembered the way Callan had fixed wires, the way he handed her tools like she was a real crew member, the way he looked at them not like aliens, but like daughters. She whispered, "We won't leave him." "We can't," Leary asked. "How do we go back?" Aru stared at the control panel, full of buttons and blinking lights. "I don't know yet," she said, "but I'll learn." She crawled to the front and tapped the screen. "Manual override," she whispered. "Code required," the AI answered. She sighed. "Of course." Then her eyes landed on the small storage drawer under the seat. She opened it, found a cracked datapad with Callan's name scratched on the back. Inside was a voice memo titled, "If I don't make it." Her hand trembled as she pressed play. Callan's voice filled the small pod. Rough but kind. "If you're hearing this, I didn't get out in time. I made peace with that a long time ago, but you two, you still have a sky to chase. Don't waste it hiding. Don't waste it being afraid, and don't you dare forget who you are. You're strong. You're more than what they tried to make you. Fly or fall." "You keep going." The message ended, but Aru was frozen. Not because of the goodbye, but because of what came after. The datapad unlocked and showed a second screen. Manual override codes, system access, ship blueprints. Callan had planned for this. He had trusted her. She entered the code into the control panel. The AI paused, then replied, "Pilot override accepted. Manual controls online." Aru looked at Leary, who watched with wide eyes. "We're going back," Aru said, voice steady. "But the ship?" "It's gone," Leary said. "Not yet," Aru whispered. "Not if I can help it." She turned the pod around. Slow but sure, the engines whined in protest. But they obeyed, back toward the fire. Back toward danger. Leary crawled beside her and asked, "What if they're still there?" "Then we be quiet," Aru said, like he taught us. They reached the burned wreck of the ship in 40 minutes. Smoke floated like ghosts and broken parts drifted around. The main hull was cracked, but not fully destroyed, and deep inside, a single signal blinked, faint but alive. "Life sign detected," the pod's AI announced. Aru's breath caught. "Callan," she whispered. "Docking requested," the AI said. Aru nodded. "Do it." The pod latched onto the side of the ruined ship. A hiss of air, a door opened, and cold metal greeted them. Aru wrapped Leary in a blanket and said, "Stay in the pod. I'll go find him." Leary's eyes filled with tears. "Come back, I promise," Aru said, and then she disappeared into the dark. Inside, the ship was worse than before. Sparks rained from the ceiling. Smoke clouded her eyes, but Aru moved fast. Like her feet knew the way. She followed the faint signal until she found him. Callan lay near the engine room, blood on his forehead, his hand still holding a broken wire like he had fixed things until his last breath. But his chest moved, slow, shallow, alive. Aru dropped beside him and cried, "I'm here." "We came back." His eyes fluttered open, one barely focused. "You really are crew now," he whispered with a small smile. Aru laughed through her tears. "Come on, Captain. Time to fly." She pulled him onto her back, shaking with effort, step by step. She carried him through the smoke. The ship groaned around her. Fire chasing her heels, but she did not stop. Not even once. Back in the pod, Leary screamed with joy when she saw them. The door closed, the pod detached, and the fire behind them swallowed the wreck once and for all. Hook for Part 6. As they flew away, a quiet message appeared on the pod's screen. Alert, enemy flagship tracking signal. New bounty posted. And far across the stars, a new hunter whispered, "The game isn't over yet." The stars stretched out like a road of cold diamonds. The escape pod drifted quietly, carrying 3 broken souls and a spark of hope. Kalen lay on the small bed in the back, eyes closed, breathing slow. Aru sat beside him, gently cleaning the wound on his forehead with soft cloth torn from her sleeve. Leary watched from the corner, clutching a small pillow to her chest. She didn't cry, but her eyes held the weight of too much fear for someone so small. They were safe for now, but safety in space never lasted long. The AI voice returned, calm and steady. Nearest neutral world, Gliese Refuge 9. Population mixed, status peaceful. Aru leaned forward. "Take us there." "Confirmed," the AI replied. "Estimated arrival 3 hours." She looked down at Callan, his skin pale, sweat shining on his face. "He needs real help," she whispered. "Not just me in rags." Leary crept over and touched Kalen's hand gently. "Will he wake up?" she asked, her voice small as stardust. Aru gave a weak smile. "Yes, because he promised he would." They passed through asteroid fields, past lonely satellites blinking their last lights. The pod shook once when a rock clipped its side, but it kept flying, slow and stubborn, like it refused to quit. As they neared Gliese Refuge 9, a soft golden planet came into view. Lights danced in its sky like ribbons, and floating cities hovered above soft oceans. It looked like a dream. "Too perfect to be real," Leary gasped. "It's beautiful," Aru nodded. "Let's just hope they let us land." The AI opened a connection. "Incoming pod requesting emergency docking. 2 minors, 1 injured adult." A pause. Then a gentle female voice replied, "Permission granted, landing pad 4. Medical team on standby." Aru's shoulders dropped, just a little, like a heavy bag sliding off her back. They landed softly, steam hissing from the pod's legs. The hatch opened and warm light poured in for a second. The girls blinked. Sunlight had become a stranger to them. Aru stepped out first, holding Leary's hand, her eyes scanning for danger. But there were no soldiers, no guns, just kind faces and clean uniforms. A tall doctor stepped forward and knelt before them. "You must be Aru and Leary," she said. "I'm Dr. Sorrell." She looked inside the pod and signaled her team. "Let's get him stabilized." The medics moved with care, lifting Kalen onto a hoverbed. They didn't ask where he came from, didn't judge the dirt on his clothes or the scars on his arms. They just worked fast and quiet. As they walked through the glowing hallways of the refuge, Aru held tight to Leary's hand. Everyone smiled at them. Shopkeepers, children. Even a floating droid offered them candy. But Aru couldn't relax, not yet. She had seen too much kindness turn into cruelty before. They were given a small room, 2 beds, clean clothes, warm food. Leary jumped on the mattress and squealed. "It's soft." Aru smiled and pulled her close. "You deserve soft." That night, Aru couldn't sleep. She sat by the window and watched the stars outside the glass. Somewhere out there, people still hunted them somewhere. Someone still wanted to take them back to chains. The next morning, Dr. Sorrell entered with a gentle smile. "Kalen's awake," she said. "He's asking for you." Aru rushed down the hallway. Leary at her heels, they found Kalen sitting up, a soft band over his head and tubes in his arm. He looked tired but smiled when he saw them. "I thought you might leave me behind," he joked weakly. "Never," Aru said, tears in her eyes. "You're the only home we had." Later that day, Dr. Sorrell sat with them in the garden. "There are options," she explained. "Families here adopt refugees all the time. You could start school, learn freely, sleep without fear." Aru looked at Leary, who was playing with glowing butterflies near a tree. Then she asked, "What about Callan?" Dr. Sorrell paused, then answered, "He's welcome too, but his records show a bounty." Aru's face tightened. "Because he saved us." The doctor nodded sadly. "That's how it goes sometimes." Callan joined them later. Walking slowly, leaning on a stick, he sat beside them and looked out at the city. "Beautiful place," he said. "But even beauty can break you if it hides sharp edges." Aru asked, "Do we stay?" He looked at her and replied, "That's your choice now, not mine." That evening, the AI alerted Aru. New message intercepted, encryption broken, tracking request active from Bounty Guild. She read the words again, heart sinking. "They're still coming," she whispered. Even here. Morning came softly to Gliese Refuge 9. The golden light filled every window, touching the walls like a gentle hand. For the first time in a long time, Aru and Leary woke up without fear. The beds were warm. The air smelled of bread and flowers. It felt like a dream, one they were afraid to wake from. Aru looked over at Leary, still sleeping with her hand clutching a toy star. She smiled faintly and whispered, "You can rest now." But deep inside, she knew the peace outside didn't match the storm inside her. Somewhere in the stars, someone was still hunting them, and she could feel it like a shadow behind her heartbeat. Kalen was already awake, sitting in a chair by the window. His face looked older now, the lines deeper, but his eyes were calm. He held a mug of steaming drink, staring at the horizon. When Aru joined him, he said quietly, "You see that city?" She nodded. "Yes," he smiled. "It's alive. Full of second chances." They sat together in silence for a while. Leary ran outside to feed small floating creatures that glowed like fireflies. Her laughter filled the air. It was soft, pure, and healing. It was the kind of sound that reminded Kalen why he had fought, why he had risked everything for two small alien girls who had no one. Later that day, the Refugee Council invited them for an interview. It was a simple thing: registration, food allocation, safety rules. But Aru felt nervous as she walked through the shining hallways. Her hand gripped Kalen's sleeve like she had on the night he found them. The councilwoman smiled kindly. "You three have been through much," she said. "You can stay as long as you need. There are schools for the children and work for adults." Kalen nodded. "Thank you." "But," the woman added softly, "you must understand this is a peaceful world. No trouble, no violence, no running from the past." Kalen's smile faded for a moment, but he only said, "We'll try our best." Days passed quietly. Leary started school, where she painted pictures of stars and homes and one man in a brown coat. Aru helped Dr. Sorrell in the med lab, learning how to treat wounds and heal people. Kalen fixed old machines in the market, broken hover carts, farm drones, cleaning bots. He worked quietly, humbly, never asking for payment. People started calling him the mechanic with kind eyes. At night, the three of them sat on the roof of their small home. Leary would tell stories about her day, Aru would laugh and tease her, and Kalen would just listen, smiling, watching the stars. It wasn't much, but it was theirs. Yet peace is never promised. One night, when the wind was still and the moon glowed silver, a faint alarm from the refuge base echoed through the city. "Unauthorized ship entering orbit," the voice said. Kalen stood up, his face turning pale. He looked at Aru. "It's them." The next hours passed like a blur. The council ordered everyone inside. Defense shields rose. But the dark ship in orbit didn't attack. It waited. A message appeared on every screen in the city. A voice said, "Return what belongs to us, and we will leave in peace." Aru clenched her fists. "They mean us." Kalen looked at the sky, jaw tight. "I won't let them take you again," he said. "But you can't fight them alone," Aru whispered. He smiled sadly. "I'm not alone anymore." He opened his communicator. "Iris," he said softly. The voice of the old ship's AI answered. "Captain Kalen, backup system online. Awaiting command." Kalen's eyes glimmered. "You beautiful machine. I knew you weren't gone." The remains of his old ship, its data and defenses, were stored inside his wristband. He had carried it like a piece of his soul now. It projected a shield code into the city's defense grid. Within seconds, Gliese's shield strengthened. Glowing bright blue across the sky, the hunters tried to land. Their ships hit the shield and burned in fire. One by one, they fell, until the leader's voice screamed through the static. "This isn't over, human. They'll always be hunted," Kalen whispered back. "Not while I'm breathing." When the sky cleared, the city cheered. No one had ever seen a man stand against the Bounty Guild and win. But Kalen didn't smile. He just turned to Aru and said, "Now, it's really over." She nodded, tears in her eyes. "No, now it's beginning." Weeks passed, and the refuge accepted them fully. Kalen became part of the community. Teacher, builder, protector, Aru trained as a healer, and Leary filled every wall with drawings of family and light. Their story spread through the city, whispered in markets and classrooms. The tale of a man who saved two alien girls and taught them how to live again. One night, under a sky filled with moving lights, Leary curled up beside Kalen. "Are we safe now?" she asked sleepily. He brushed her hair back and smiled. Safe enough to dream. Aru looked at them, her eyes soft. You gave us home? He shook his head gently. No, you gave me one. The moonlight touched their faces. 3 souls from different worlds, bound not by blood but by choice, by love, by survival. And though the galaxy still turned with danger and darkness, that night in their little home, they were simply a family, far away, deep in the void. A small signal flickered, a whisper from the broken ship's AI. Captain Callan, new life forms detected. More children, lost. Kalen's eyes opened, his voice calm but firm. Then we have work to do.